Reading body language in Zoom. Zoom is the new age of work, and so it's important for us to understand how to take in what somebody's giving us through nonverbals, as well as what we're hearing. This is important for life generally, but in Zoom, there's a few details that are pretty interesting to explore. Here are 11 nonverbal cues that you can read through Zoom. Cue 1, head tilted to the side. This indicates that a person is listening. It gives you the opportunity to go on, continue talking. Cue number 2. When somebody's hand or pencil or something else is on their mouth and they're not supporting their head, then this indicates that the person likely has something that they want to say, something they want to express, but they're holding back. So if you give them a chance to open up, that will give them a chance to express what they want to say. It's also good to understand that people are engaged. They're unlikely to be disengaged in what's going on. So this is a good sign for Zoom. Cue number 3. When somebody is supporting the weight of their head with their hands or with their arms or things like this, this indicates that they're pretty low engagement. They're tired, they may be fatigued, and anything that you're communicating to them is probably going to get through a bit worse than it would at another time when they're not supporting their head with their hands, which indicates that they're less tired, more engaged. Cue number 4. Cue number 4 is when somebody's eyes are tilting up and to the left or to the right as they're going to access areas in memory or they're really thinking about something. This indicates that a person is thinking, they're processing. They may also not be sure. So it's a good idea when you see somebody doing this to give them a little bit more space to process before adding more on top. Or you could even ask and open them up. What are you thinking? What's processing for you, to get them explaining through the thought process? Cue number 5. When somebody's arms or their head or their hands are moving up and down in a motion that's sort of like this or any combination of this but up and down, this indicates that they're confident, they're firm. Whatever is happening, they have conviction behind whatever it is that they're presenting at this time. Cue number 6. When somebody's leaning back and they're not leaning forwards, especially when they have moved position backwards, or you see them towards the back of the room and the screen wherever they're at, this indicates that they may be undecided. They may be processing what's going on. They may also be a little bit standoffish as they're not leaning forward to engage with things. They're creating distance and space between you or whatever else is happening on screen and themselves. And this space is what indicates non-verbally, subconsciously, that a person is not quite connected with what's going on. They may not believe it. They may not want to engage with it. They're not interested. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're completely against something, but there's a bit of space that they're creating. And so that may be what this means. Cue number 7. When somebody is leaning forward, this can mean a couple things, depending on what else it may be coupled with. When somebody is really moving forward, leaning forward, and you see especially that they move to this position and they're asking questions, they're looking, they're engaged, then this can really mean that they're engaged, that you've got alignment with them on whatever is going on. If they're coming and closing the space between themselves and the camera, that's what this can mean. It's a good sign. Keep going. Watch whether they create more space. If it's just a temporary space they're creating and then they come back, that may not mean that they've lost disengagement. But if you start to see signs that they're starting to disengage a bit again, then just watch for that. But if a person is leaning forward and it's combined and they're really leaning onto their elbows, or especially if it's combined with supporting their head, this can mean that a person is just tired, disengaged. Tip number 8. When somebody is slowly nodding, especially when it's coupled with accessing the thoughts and memories and processing parts of their brain, looking up and to the left, up or up to the right, this can indicate that they're realizing something. They're close to an aha moment. They're not fully there yet, in which case they might gesture a little bit more, provide a little more insight into they've arrived at that point. But when somebody's slowly engaging, slowly up and down, looking up and around, they're taking in what's going on. And this is a good sign to, again, keep going and get them to that final point of realization or aha. This also may mean that they may need a little bit of time to get to that point. If you keep dumping information on them, it may not be the best thing as just giving them some space to get to that final point. You could also ask them, again, as one of the tips earlier on was engaging with someone who's looking up and to the right. You can ask them what's going on, ask them a question, engage them, see whether there's anything that they need to make that final leap to, aha, I've got it, I'm on board, or I'm comfortable with this. Tip number 9. If you see somebody that's squirming around in their chair, especially if they're doing some sort of like kind of movements with their hands, and it's continuous movements, or they're rubbing their hands or something else where they're using this repetitive motion that doesn't end up being static, and they're squirming in their gestures or their position. This indicates that somebody is uncomfortable with what's going on. They're not with it. They're afraid of it. They're unsure. They're physically expressing their uncomfort subconsciously as their hands are moving around. This may be happening when somebody is speaking to a crowd or others and they're uncomfortable. It's probably most common when somebody is going to be speaking and engaging, but if you do see someone shifting and squirming as they're thinking and they're processing something, or after you've delivered something that may be likely to cause uncomfort, or you're watching to see whether it makes people uncomfortable, check for whether they are dynamic in their movements, squirming, or whether they're static and taking things in. Tip number 10. Really? Okay. Uh-huh. How does that sound? Are we in agreement here? What do you think? When somebody is raising their eyebrows and they're wrinkling their forehead, especially when combined when they're speaking with the high inflection point with their voice on the end of whatever may be going on, this indicates that they're vulnerable. They're a bit unsure, they're a bit unsteady, and they're seeking agreement. They're really trying to build alignment with you on something that they're not quite sure they're there on. So that's something that you can use in building some empathy with a person if they're expressing high inflection points in their voices and their forehead is wrinkling and their eyebrows are going up and they're really trying to reach you. It's a little bit of a beseeching kind of play. Tip number 11. This one is probably pretty easy to read. When somebody's lips are pursed, they're pushing their lips together, compressing, then this is most likely a negative reaction. They are not on board with what's going on. They dislike what's happening. They're starting to go into their head and already disconnect from what's going on and build their kind of resistance to things. Even if this is combined with a slow head nod, this can likely mean that they're firming and solidifying their position in opposition and not necessarily that they're actually coming on board with this. So watch out for pursed lips, even when somebody is slowly nodding. And there you have it. There are 11 tips for not reading nonverbal cues, subconscious cues that people may be giving during a Zoom call. Hopefully this helps you to be a bit better equipped in order to participate in Zoom meetings and do well in this work from home, work from anywhere, remote working culture.